Hello guys, welcome to Major's Garage. This is Suellio. I'm the crew chief for the Formula 1, Formula 3, and Formula 3.5. Today we're gonna see my lap here at Road America with the Formula 3. So let's go straight away to the first corner. So basically, my reference here for this first corner is the only single last cone here. I'm actually using it for both braking reference and turning reference. So basically I'm starting to brake a little bit before it. My maximum brake pressure will be when I'm basically besides it, but then it's also where I start turning. So I basically do everything pretty quickly here. There is an order though. You don't want to brake while turning, you want to brake on a straight line, and as soon as you reach the maximum pressure you already start decreasing the brakes as you turn in. So let's see that order, like brake, and then as I release you see that connection between how I release the brakes and how I turn. So if you do it pretty quickly, boom boom, it's like brake turn, brake turn. It's like there's this, you should not brake and turn at the same time. There's a small delay between braking and starting to turn. And you want to be turning as you're releasing the brakes. Remember that if you maintain the brakes as you turn, the car will not have a very good cornering performance. About the curb here, I want to be quite early on this first curb. We don't want to consider it as a late apex. It's actually early that I want to be over the curb, and then you see how I punch the throttle quite aggressively and basically try to rotate the car with that throttle. So basically trying to rotate the car from mid-corner to exit with the rear tires. It's quite easy to get an off-track here. After we go from the second layer here, we end up putting a little bit of the tires on this dirt and grass. I think you will get an off track if you put the middle of the car on this little area here. So that's where you get an off track. So if you still have some tires, like if you have like a little bit of the car on the outside here, you will not get an off track. So, but be careful with that. I think it needs a little bit of practice just to see where specifically how aggressive you can be here without getting off track. Then going for the second corner, my reference is the 1 sign here at the left, and we can see that there is a slight, there's a tiny white line here that represents that 1. I never actually look at this white line. I prefer to look to this area between the 1 and the end of the wall here. So that end of the wall is something that I also use as a reference, just to see how far I am into the braking zone and where I'm going to turn. I don't have a specific point where I'm going to turn here, only for the braking. Again, we want to get on the curb slightly early, but a little bit later than the first one. The first one we're going for the curb quite early. Here it's still early, but not that early. And you can see, like, even before the first half of the curb ends, I'm already using the curb. What I really want to do here, what I'm really thinking about here, is to get back on the throttle as early as possible, because there's a big straight coming up after this corner. So you definitely want to carry as much speed as possible. So as soon as I'm braking here, all I'm thinking about is having a good turn in and preparing my car for the launch. I really want it to accelerate as early as possible. As you can see, I'm basically punching to 100% throttle. And the same thing here about getting the little bit of dirt you can get, but more than that, I'm not sure if it's the middle of the car touching the edge of this gray curb here, white curb, that will give you an off track. You should actually experiment, and you can actually do that in an offline test. You can just go here super slowly, just see how far you can go until you get an off track. Then going for the one of the, I think it's the lowest corner of the track. This braking zone is quite tricky. You have to deal with both the track going down a little bit and the track churning slightly to the left as you prepare the braking zone. So try not to be affected by it. It's very easy to try to keep churning to the left as we brake. So look at what I do here. I'm basically preparing the line, and as soon as I start braking, look at my steering wheel. I'm almost not churning to the left. You can see I'm basically just correcting a little bit now as I'm starting to turn left, but I pointed my car on a straight line, and even when the curb was when the track was turning slightly to the left and I felt like I was going off track, I still maintained that direction. You can use a little bit of this curb, not a little bit, as you can see I'm actually using a lot of the curb. I'm basically touching the outside tarmac here. This actually helps us not worrying about braking and churning, so we have a better braking performance, and at the same time we have a better line for the corner itself. So pay attention to that. And then here I want to be super close to this inside curb here. This was basically the limit, because when we touched the dirt here or the grass, the car gets a little bit of upset because there's a change in elevation here. I think the curb and the track are higher than the grass and the dirt, so avoid putting the tire down here on this small gap, and then use as priority here getting back on the throttle at the apex. So as you can see, I'm getting back on the throttle quite early here. I'm already pointing. I know that the car is gonna do the corner well, so I'm already starting to load the rear tires with some throttle, and then as I go at the apex, you can see how I'm really increasing even more the throttle, but starting that throttle application from the apex. A little bit of gravel here, but there's no problem, you can use it. Then we have this tricky corner here. It's tricky because it's changing its elevation on the corner entry, so the track starts falling as you turn in, so the car gets really light, and you should be aware of that when using your brakes. It's very easy to lock up the tires here, so we have to brake super gently. As you can see, I'm braking even almost on a straight line when I started braking, and that was like 20% brakes, so it's very sensitive to locking. I'm aware of that. I'm braking much less, and as soon as I already start turning, still the car is light here, so I'm basically trail braking, but very lightly, being very gentle with the gear. I'm still on third gear here, so really being gentle with the car because there's not a lot of mechanical grip here. So even at the throttle application, you can see how I'm being super gentle, trying to manage that lack of grip basically. And then as soon as I get here, I am starting to be a little bit more aggressive. Had a scary moment here, but did not get on off track and I did not lose any time. Then we go flat out through this one, nothing to worry about. And then for this one, I'm using somewhere between the 2 and the beginning of the curve to brake, but I'm always braking at the 2 because I realize that if I take care of the tires by braking at the 2 and not deeper than that, I can have time to prepare for the corner a little bit more, and not abusing the tires, I end up having a little bit more grip. So my goal here is to use the curb, because there's a small hole here as you go on the curb. This curb is actually slightly lower than the track itself, so it's cambered. It gives you a little bit of a pull. It pulls the car to the left, so you have a little bit more grip, and then I'm able to really think about accelerating off the corner at the apex. So basically braking at the 2. But as you can see, I'm really not carrying a lot of brakes here because this corner is a little bit weird in terms of mechanical grip. So be careful with this corner too. It's very easy to end up losing the rear here. Now for the carousel, what I'm doing is basically I'm thinking about having a very very late apex. It's not super late, it's like more mid corner, but since this corner is very long, it feels very late anyways. So as you can see, I'm closing in and I'm closing in and I'm closing in and I'm closing in and I'm closing in, and only around here I start being super close to the white line. It's possible to do it flat out, but I don't think it's worth it. It feels faster to be managing a little bit how much the car oversteers. On hot tires, you can even oversteer and still have the car doing the corner good flat out, but if you oversteer too much, you end up losing speed, so it's not worth it. So I'm basically managing the rear here with small lift. As you can see, I'm lifting slightly when I'm here mid corner already on the inside, and then when I get the feeling that I'm going to finish the corner well, I can go back to 100% throttle. As you can see, I'm using a lot of the exit here and really having my car super early on this outside curb. Then we go flat out through this one, no big deal. And here, it's a very important corner. Basically, I'm looking at the 2, but not only at the 2. As you can see, there's a clearer part here of the grass. I'm using this as a reference, so I'm not only braking at the 2, I'm actually using that and the 2. So this area, it really depends on how the tires feel, the temperature of the track, and where in the stint you are. So sometimes when the tires feel really good, I end up braking a little bit later. As you can see here, I'm starting to brake right in between those 2 references that I'm using. So I'm basically using this area as a reference, not specifically just one point. Then really worried about braking on a straight line, waiting for the car to slow down, and then starting to turn in. And look how important it is to stay on the white line as you brake, because as soon as I start turning from the edge of the track. It's very common for people to turn in already pointing slightly to the corner, and then you lose a lot of performance in cornering because you're gonna have to do a tighter arc. So pay attention with that. And here, because the corner is slightly cambered, you have a little bit of mechanical grip, extra mechanical grip, because of how the inside of the corner is actually lower than the outside. You can really be aggressive on the throttle. As you can see, I'm just basically going straight to 100% as quickly as I can, even to generate a little bit of rotation. And then using this entire curve here, be careful not to use it too much, because then you will not have enough time to come back and you will get an off track here. Another one that is flat out and quite fun to do. You don't need to use this entire track here. As you can see, you can basically save a little bit of distance if you're staying to the middle. Just don't force it, just a little bit. As soon as you have to really feel how much is trying to turn too much, and to use this shorter path here, because if you scrub the fronts trying to force too much that line to the inside, you will end up losing speed anyways. So just gently turning here and trying to stay just a little bit to the right, not to use this curb. It's quite dangerous sometimes to hit this end of the curb here. There's a bump here that throws the car, and it's not very comfortable to drive over. Then for this corner, I'm braking. We can see this white line here, but I'm really thinking more about how early I am, how far away I am from this change of color here. And because I think this change of color is easier to see during the race. Sometimes it may be a little bit more complicated to look for this reference. I think this reference is much clearer, and you can use it more consistently without being afraid of missing it. So I'm braking some maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 cars before that change of color in the tarmac, and I'm staying very, very close to this white line. Maybe we don't need to use the entire curve. As you can see here, I'm just using this white line because since the curb starts a little bit too late, there's no time to actually be pointing outwards just to use the curb. You end up having an angle that will not compensate the extra track that you're using. So I just stay being parallel here to this white line for a better angle on entry, and then my arc is much easier, and I can carry a little bit more speed even though I'm not using the entire track. Here, it's very important to get back on the throttle super early. As you can see, whenever there is a straight after the corner, I'm really trying to have a very, very early throttle application. So I kind of shape my line based on how much I'm going to benefit from the extra speed I'm going to have after the corner. So as you can see, I'm getting back on the throttle super early and really being a little bit too aggressive here. I put the rear tire on the gravel, on the dirt, and you see how I have a slight scary moment here, but it was okay. It's not super easy to correct it, so sometimes this may not be, I mean, for the race pace, try not to have to correct it all the time, because sometimes the car just snaps so quickly, especially if you only put the rear tire on the outside. So be careful with that here. And yeah, this lap was a 2:0.3. I hope you guys have enjoyed the tutorial, and see you next week. Bye bye.